Sammy, your hand.
You're doing good.
Hand, left hand, slowly. Left. Keep walking backwards and stop.
Stop.
Good. It was fun to recreate my 8mm films. I wish I could have recreated my 8mm films to the amateurish degree I shot them at when I was 11, 12, 14, 16, 17 years old. I wasn't able to resist finding a better place to put the camera in 2021 when I made the movie than where I put the camera in 1961. I just couldn't resist it. I would not have been able to co-author this film without somebody I truly, dearly admired and adored and knew me so well and who I so loved and respected. And that happened to be Tony Kushner. And just because he won a Pulitzer Prize and the Tony Award and been nominated several times for Academy Awards, for me, that wasn't a criteria. The only thing that mattered to me was I could open it up to somebody, and I could basically unpack all of my suitcases in front of somebody, and I would never feel embarrassed or ashamed, and could actually go down a very personal road. And that's why I asked if Tony would co-author this with me.
Look at me. Yeah, that's it. That's
one of the reasons I wrote this story is because at a very young age, something had happened in my life, which is reflected in our film, but something happened in my life between myself and my mother, where I stopped perceiving my mother as a parent and began looking upon her as a person. And I think all kids at a certain point in their lives, if they grow up in a communicative relationship with their parents, and they themselves have kids, there are moments where they realize, hey, my parents have been people all this time, and I never knew it until now. And maybe the kid is 40 and the parents are 65 when that epiphany occurs. I had that epiphany when I was 16 years old, and so I've never looked at any of the people in my story as enemies.
But you, Mr. Director, you don't want to do this, but your daddy tells you, because you want to make your war picture.
I looked for several things. I looked for somebody who was really much more handsome than me, and somebody that the girls would probably fall for more than they fell for me, and I cast somebody who had insatiable curiosity, which I know I've always possessed. And as a person, Gabe has insatiable curiosity. And that was, when I started meeting him on Zoom calls, that was the thing that I really connected with him about, was how many questions he asks and how he questions everything and how he's open to basically receive and accept any answer because he's curious. And that was the one thing I knew about myself consistently in my entire life. I'm curious about so many things, which is why I make so many different kinds of movies and not just the same kind of movie over and over again, because my curiosity throws me into genres that I never imagined I would ever do. And now I'm suddenly doing a genre I've never done before. And he's that way. There are no villains in the Fabelmans. In a way, the Fabelmans is a story about the act, the act of forgiveness and how important that act of forgiveness is.
And so we don't see what he sees, but we see that he's really...
Imagine having, a relative who used to be a lion tamer at the circus and did other dirty deeds also in the circus. He swept out the pachyderms, stalls, things like that when he was working his way up. Trying to get into the big top at the time. He did a lot of different things, but they were always eccentric and they're always bigger than life. And I think he had the biggest personality of anybody my mother knew of all of her relatives. He had the biggest personality, and I know that he scared my grandmother and he scared my mom a lot because he was just always sucked all the air out of the room. I only met him a couple of times. I remember meeting him when I was like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and he was always somebody I wanted to go into the other room when he started talking in that overly loud voice with that thick Ukrainian accent. He scared me. And then when he came to Phoenix, Arizona to pay his respects after my grandmother died, which is shown in the movie. That was, as a kid, maybe 16 years old, that's when I really understood that this was this is probably where show business came from. I think my show business gene probably came from both my mother, who was a performer in her own restaurant, and probably a little bit genetically from Uncle Boris.
That's it, Steven. That's what you need to do. That's it.
Let's shoot this. Don't anybody move.
Don't touch the projector.
I wonder, just try to show him. Let me see if I can.
He still got it. Michelle Williams walked in clothes that my mom, exact replicas of clothes my mom had worn, her favorite clothes. And Paul walked in looking just like my dad. And I turned around and I looked at Paul and Michelle together, and it was kind of an out-of-body moment. There was a little moment where everything sort of went into slow motion, like a car accident. And I just looked at them together, and I didn't see Michelle and I didn't see Paul. I saw Lee and Arnold. I saw my mom and my dad, and I kind of lost it. So everything that I said I was not going to do on the first day of shooting happened to me. And bless their hearts, they both walked up to me and they both embraced me. So we were in a three-way hug, and that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Now, I want a professional to do this.
I wanted to have that kind of doctor-patient relationship with my cast, but it was hard to do it because the story kept tugging me back to actual memories and recreating things that had actually happened to me, and seeing them unspool in front of me. It was a wicked, weird experience, I have to tell you. It was just like nothing I have ever gone through before. And ultimately, it was a very good experience. It was really a great thing to have gone through, and I'm happy I did. I didn't want this story to be told in a vanity mirror. You know, I wanted the story to be told in more of a communal mirror, so people could see their own families inside the story. Because this story is about family, it's about parents, it's about siblings, it's about bullying, it's about the good and bad things that happen when you're growing up in a family that pretty much stays together until they're no longer together. The aspects of my Jewish existence is just, it's part of the DNA. It just goes without much comment. That's how we grew up. The bullying is just it doesn't define me, and it doesn't define my life, but it certainly is something that happened to me. Very little in Arizona, but more so in California, in Northern California. The school bears no weight of culpability or responsibility at all, but I wanted to tell that story because it did result in a lot of my own awareness of anti-Semitism, which led to other films about anti-Semitism that I've made in my life.
Fabelmans!
Okay.
You want three or you want two? Okay. You spotted them, you announced it.
Tony and I didn't set about to make a comedy, but you know, life is full of things that are ridiculous and silly and hysterically funny and abstract and existential and also very sad and traumatizing. And it's just what all of us go through as we go through our formative years. And I simply wanted this to be a coming-of-age story that basically takes stock in the stuff that happens to us that we wish never happened, and the stuff that happens to us which we look back on and laugh hysterically because it wasn't funny at the time. But in looking back, it was pretty funny.
Great day, man.
Hey, thank you so much.
Everything that a filmmaker puts him or herself into, even if it's somebody else's script and you're just picking the shots and directing the actors, your life is going to come spilling out onto celluloid, whether you like it or not. It just happens to all of us. But in the sense of the Fabelmans, it wasn't about metaphor, it was about memory.
Thank you for joining me on this behind-the-scenes look at the Fabelmans. I'm a big fan of Steven Spielberg work, and I love how in this behind-the-scenes we were able to see a bunch of lighting and everything in the way he lights his scenes. So let me know down in the comments down below if you learned anything. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you here next time. Later.